How did that sound? You first. How did that sound? Well, I don't know.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kent with Ben number 180, I think. There has been some shenanigans with me getting numbers wrong before, so, you know, roughly 180. 180-ish. I'm dapper. I'm not in the title of the show, even though I run the show mostly. But this guy in the red shirt, that's the Bent from Kent with Bent.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Bent. Nice to meet you.
Bent Hovind, right?
Bent Hovind, no relation.
No relation.
Yeah.
All right. So, first things first. I love it with you guys. I've been a little tired the past few days. I've been in a little bit of pain the past few days. I think Bent's in a similar boat. So, I have no idea how this is gonna go. But I will say that I decided to basically say, hey, all the stream goals, we're just doing a 25% off on that one, right? So you can also think of it as you just getting a 25% boost. So, you know, if you send a $10 super chat, you can think of that as being a $12.50 super chat in terms of things like, do we make Ben wear a tutu next time? I believe at the end of the month, right? There's another Kent with Ben this month, isn't there?
I'm not sure if there's another one this month.
No, there isn't. This will be on the 5th of next month.
Okay.
So if you want to make Bent wear a tutu, we just got to get that up to 100%. And I'm just seeing that we have another 5 that came in. And also, I do want to let people know that the percentage number on the fundraising tracker, that is, in fact, truncated and not rounded. And that's so that it actually says 100% at 100% and not like at 99%, but it hasn't actually triggered on any of the things. So it is typically slightly higher than what you're seeing. So that's also why we went from 2 to 4% on a $5 super chat. The $5 super chats are worth more than 1%, but less than 2%. So what are you going to do, right? So there you go. Oh, and we just got some Dapper Dinosaur gifted membership. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the super chats, and then we're going to talk about a couple things, and then we're going to dive into this. So first of all, after joining the channel at the tetrapod level, Fear Amen is English Monger says renewing for $5 says renewing membership because for some reason YouTube was still charging me in sex, incurring foreign exchange fees. Anyway, AIG is a bag of dicks. Drink and deal with it, Darwin, and drink we shall. Thank you. I am once again drinking what Chesh would call a dark and stormy incorrectly because it's not the right rum. Let's see. Metageeky Platypus Librarian for $5 says, due to an epic day of crap and frustration, I shall watch an equally crappy and frustrating Kent tomorrow. Fair enough. May Mothra bless everyone with a trans flag, a Mothra, and a trans flag, and we will take a drink for Mothra, and of course, make sure everyone knows that trans rights are human rights. The quick way to check is that trans people are human. I know, shocking.
It's true.
Yep. Bent is a medical professional. He would know.
I do know.
Yeah. You've probably seen cells from trans people and have been able to confirm that they are in fact human cells.
They were human cells.
There you go. Don't break HIPAA.
I won't.
Okay. No identifying information. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says energy, and thank you. It actually does provide energy. And then Eris Rose gives 5 Dapper Dinosaur membership. So I'm going to take 5 drinks. I'm going to add them to the board right now. And Bent, I think that you should tell us what your favorite part about Dungeons and Dragons is.
My favorite part of Dungeons and Dragons is probably the teamwork, because teamwork makes the dream work.
I like that.
And there's nothing like living the dream.
No, I like that. That's good. That's good stuff. All right. Well, now, there's one more thing that I want to say about the funding. If we get to 50%, I have a Steam key for Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr. I will post it in the chat if we get to 50%. However, you do not have to have done any super chatting or be a member or be a patron or anything like that to get it, right? You just have to be fast enough and want it. And the only string attached is that you have to tag me saying that you got it, or if you tried it and it didn't work, you have to tag me saying that. Okay? Because I don't want to not know if we send it. So, yeah. That is the last Steam key that I currently have. Do remember, if you have extra Steam keys and you want me to just give them away on streams, feel free to send them to me. And, yeah. Although I can't promise that if you send me a Steam key and it's a game that I both want and don't have, that I won't use it on myself. So be aware that you are potentially just giving me a free game. Which, you know, that's just how it is. There's a few games that I have like that. There's actually one I had to play pretty soon, which was a Warhammer 40k orc-themed fighter jet game where you're in an orc fighter jet and you had to blow up other fighter jets from the 40k universe. And
Interesting.
yeah, the fun thing about the orcs is that they're the comic relief faction. So like everything they do is insane. Everything. One of their most powerful weapons is a portal gun that shoots portals. But they're not actually using the portals for destruction. What they're actually doing is sending a small goblin through the portal, and the portal takes them literally through hell for a few seconds. So when they come out, they're crazed and frenzied, and they rip people apart in that frenzy. And that's just one of their guns. They also have a bubble cannon that shoots out bubbles of magical energy, and what it does is completely random. It might do nothing. It might tear a hole in reality and suck everything into it. You just don't know.
It sounds risky.
It's very risky. The orcs are a high risk, high reward kind of an army. They're a horde army, and they're very, very random. Sometimes the dice will go in your favor because Mork and Orc was it? Mork and now I can't remember the name of the gods. Doesn't matter. The orc gods are smiling on you, and the dice go your way. Other times, everything just falls apart, and you die before you even get to the battle lines of your enemy. Anyway, Norumda puts for $5 says, it was a dark and stormy night somewhere, and Dapper Dinosaur was drinking a dark and stormy-ish drink. Yes, that is correct. Wait, let me add that here. There we go, up to 12%. Okay, so today we are here for some Kent. But before we get into that, we'll do the drinking rules because we've already seen one of them. Actually, we've seen two of them, I believe. No, three. All three. We've seen all three of the chat induced drinks. So, if you guys want to make us drink, the ways you can do that are, one, you can send us a super chat with something to the effect that Answers in Genesis are a bag of dicks. Now, if you're a channel member, we do have a dedicated channel emoji just for that. But if you're not, you're going to have to be a little bit clever. So we also will take a drink if people send memberships up until the point where there's about 30. Once there's more than 30 or so on the board, I'm just going to increment the counter and finish my drink and go get another one. I have 8 more ginger beers and plenty of rum so that I could do that. And honestly, given there's been a kind of painful few days, I wouldn't super mind doing that, if I'm being completely honest with you. And then, of course, you can get us to drink by adding in any of the kaiju emojis, such as Godzilla, Ghidorah, and Mothra. So sending those in will get it as a super chat or membership milestone chat. Those will get us a drink. Also, if you hear either Mothra or Godzilla audibly, we'll take a drink for that. Those can come through on my phone. I'm not telling you how to make that happen, because then you'll try to do it. Let's see. But also, we will take a drink if Kent says something that's so stupid we just kind of have to. Oh, and nope, we got some super chats. Rando from chat for 100 Argentinian pesos says, remember, there is no I in team unless you're one of those nerds without friends who uses the IPA. True, there is an I in the IPA in team. It's right there. It's the only vowel. It's T-I-M, team. Yep. Templar Warden for 2 Kiwi dollars says, good job, Bent. No context. Well done, Bent.
Thank you.
All right. So let's see. Yeah, if Ken says something too stupid, that we just have to take a drink, we'll do it. Then Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, remember that Kent was once kicked out of the Guild of Village Idiots for incompetence. That does sound like something that would happen to him. All right. We will all take a drink if something that Ken says is actually factually accurate and it's not just something he's reading from some source or something like that and he's just a quotation. If it actually comes out of his brain and out of his mouth and says it to us, then we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. That one is a bit of a judgment call. We have to basically just decide, does this seem truthy? And if not, we take a drink. Do remember, it doesn't actually matter if we get any of these wrong because all of this is made up. The drinks don't matter. It's just for fun. Let's see. We will also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions that political party that was super popular, especially in Germany in the 1930s, and it's becoming depressingly relevant once again. We will take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind manages to cite a source, and then we go and check the source, and the source not only fails to support him, but actually actively contradicts him. We'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind mixes up what we can know about any taxon to which Lucy, that's the Australopithecus afarensis specimen, belonged, with what we can know, like if he mixes up what we can know just from that specimen with what we can know about any wider taxon, and he mixes it up because he doesn't know we found other specimens. So for instance, if he's like, well, we don't know if Lucy could walk upright and we don't have her feet. Yeah, well, we have other Australopithecus feet, so it doesn't really matter. We call that ad hominem. We only get one of those per stream. Let's see, we will also take a drink if either Bent or I can successfully predict what Kent is going to be saying next as his argument when it's not very, very obvious. We'll also take a drink if I screw up the production. So for instance, if I forget to turn off the opening credits for the show when we come back from a break and they play, or if I accidentally leave Bent muted or something like that, or accidentally mute myself and fail to unmute myself and then start going off on something. Those will all be reasons why we might get a Dapper's a professional drink. But if it is an act of God, if a flood washes away my computer, if lightning strikes YouTube HQ, if the internet cables between here and there are cut by land sharks, those are all not on me. We do not take a Dapper's a professional drink on those. So, Bent, what have I missed?
You didn't miss any rules.
Not any.
You got all of them.
All right. Let's see. We've got $5 from Sapphire Zombie. Oh, wait. No, it's longer. Zombie Goliath Light. There we go. For $5, says, it's 8 p.m. Do you know where your like press is? Oh, your like pressing like. Got it. Okay. It's 8 p.m. Do you know where your like press is? Mothra emoji. We'll take a drink for that. Sorry, I'm out of it. And then someone asked me to read Greek today and primed me to think it was Russian by saying the alphabet was Cyrillic. Yeah. It's been a weird day like that.
That is weird.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's that weird version of the Greek alphabet that you get on Byzantine icons, like Christian icons, which does not look much like any other version of Greek script that's currently in use, either in publications or like on signage or anything. So you look at it and you're like, well, that's weird. But yeah, no, it was Greek. And yeah, it said the old lady, and I was confused by that because it was a painting of the Virgin Mary. And I don't normally think of the Virgin Mary being called the old lady. It's not normally what you label that as. So I looked up that name and I found out that there's actually like some famous icon somewhere with that name of the Virgin Mary. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is it. And then later on, like hours later, I realized that it said Mother of God at the top of the icon anyway. And I could have just looked at that. But I just missed it entirely because it was in like the metal trim of the icon and it was like a funny little bronze color. And I just thought it was a decorative bauble. No, it had the abbreviation for Mother of God right there. And so, I was extra dumb. That's the story of me being dumb today. Is failing to recognize a Byzantine Greek abbreviation for Mother of God while reading the old lady in the middle of an icon.
It's a good story.
Thanks. Was it well told?
Very well told.
There you go. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, if you don't believe me, call some guy that might actually exist at a number that might actually be connected to a telephone. Yeah, that's Kent's typical citation. You don't believe me? Call this number. I'm like, no, Kent, I'm not going to call this number from 23 years ago or whatever. Like, that's just a bad idea for numerous reasons. Like, stop it. Oh, well. All right, Bent. The last thing I want to say is, hey, be careful, pace yourself. Neither Bent nor I are taking responsibility or liability for anything that you do as a result of playing along. And if you want to play along with a non-intoxicating substance, feel free. That's what Bent's doing. Bent, what are you
Mountain
drinking?
Dew, Baja Blast.
There you go.
That's what I recommend.
All right. So, let's get some Kent in. Kent was just recently telling us that he's going to be telling us about how to use, or how Redshift and what he says, Cephid variable stars are used, how those are used to give us distances to distant objects in the sky. Cepheid. It's actually Cepheid, but yeah, you know what? What's a syllable between friends?
Eh, he's trying his mostly best.
Yeah.
Another way they measure star distance is by using what's called the red shift,
Oh, he did spell it right. Okay.
or measuring with a Cepheid variable. And we'll get into all that here. When light goes through a prism, it breaks it up into the colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet.
Okay, so one thing I want to say is this is true if violet is a dark blue. If it's purple, it's not true, because purple is what happens when your eyes see blue and red light at the same time. And the English word violet has had some semantic shift to start meaning a dark purple rather than a dark blue. And as a result, things like the pride flag have purple on it, even though that's not actually in the rainbow proper. However, sometimes you will see purple if what you're actually seeing is a faint double rainbow, where the red band of the inner rainbow is overlapping with the blue band of the outer rainbow. So it's a little complicated there. And I just wanted to put that out there, because I actually once got into a Twitter fight about the pride flag and whether or not it represented the actual colors of a rainbow with someone. And so I was just like, all right, tell me, what's the wavelength for purple light? Just give me the number, and then I will go away and admit you were right. And then the guy was like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not trying to criticize the pride flag, right? It's a fine flag. I'm just saying that is not what's in a rainbow. It's just a verifiable fact. Arrow Dodger for $4.99 says, my source is your number cannot be completed as dialed. Yeah, exactly. All right. So just wanted to go through that. All right, here we go. Which, by the way, none of that was actually a criticism of Kent, by the way. That was just me talking about how much I don't like that we use the word violet here.
Roy G. Biv, you learned that in school, right? How to memorize the colors.
Also, Roy G. Biv is not a great mnemonic device because, well, it's not naughty enough. Basically, the more sexually explicit a mnemonic device is, the better it is at making you remember. That's just a rule. And teachers don't really much like it, at least in grade school, but it's just a fact. Yeah. Lieutenant Mathnavigator for $5 says, when a grifter goes through a prison, they come out much dumber and with much fewer fun ties. That's true. Eric, I believe, now owns all of his fun ties, and Eric doesn't do a damn thing with them, and it's kind of disappointing. Like, the best thing about Kent was always the cool ties, because I gotta be honest, pre-prison Kent has some badass ties. I'm like, credit where it's due. I don't like Kent. I think he's a scumbag, but my God, he had some cool ties. Goop23 for $5 says, Kent's source, 500 phone numbers in Jerusalem, some of whom have gone to sleep, but most of whom are still alive. Oh, that is a great reference that I was not expecting. Awesome. You know what? I'm taking a drink for that. That was really good. I don't even care if it's not a rule. Good job on that one. Okay.
If starlight is traveling a great distance, or if the star is moving away from us, you should have what's called a red shift.
No, Ken, it has nothing to do with the distance on its own. It's just the motion away. Traveling a distance doesn't make light have a redshift. It's the relative motion between the object emitting the light and the object receiving the light. Because it's similar to the Doppler effect. The Doppler effect only causes a change in the frequency of sound if the listener and the thing emitting the sound are moving relative to each other. It doesn't actually matter which one's moving. If you approach a siren rapidly, like let's say there's like a parked ambulance for some reason running its siren, right? And you're on the highway and you're approaching it, it'll sound higher pitched and it'll sound lower pitched as you pass it. Even though normally we would think of you as moving. And that's because motion is relative. Similarly, if you were rushing towards a distant star in your like spacecraft at like 95% the speed of light, it would seem blue shifted no matter how far away it is, unless it's moving away from you faster than that. So distance is not a factor. It's just the motion. However, it turns out that in the universe, the farther away something is, the faster it's receding from us, which means that you can use redshift as a proxy for distance, even though technically there's no reason that should work except that the universe is expanding, which itself means that if you wind that backwards, the universe would be contracting. Is that right, Bent?
I think so.
Which is basically where we get the Big Bang from, right? If the universe was smaller in the past, what stops that from just from just going on and on and on until you get to a dot? And the answer is like, nothing, really, nothing.
This is basically how it works. If a train is moving toward you, it compresses the sound waves, and you hear a higher pitch. As it goes past you, the sound waves are stretched out or refracted, and you get a lower pitch.
Kent, that was correct. We'll take a drink for Kent get something right. I can talk. My goodness. I have to actually increment the drink counter. Did that just not work? No, it did. All right.
So the train will go as it goes by. That's called the Doppler effect, named after some guy named Doppler.
It is impossible to sound like a serious adult while imitating the Doppler effect. And I'm not criticizing Ken for sounding like a goofball when he did it, because everyone does.
Who discovered this? You can get the same thing with a whistle on a string, swing it over your head. A person out in the audience will hear, as it comes toward them, a higher pitch and a lower pitch as it goes on this side.
Interestingly, that's another way that we've managed to detect exoplanets, right? Because if the planet is orbiting roughly in like a line with us, so the orbital plane of the exoplanet is like edge on to us here on Earth, if it's sufficiently massive to cause the star to noticeably wobble back and forth, you can actually see that in a periodic change of its redshift, which I think is pretty cool. And yeah, turns out there's actually there's actually a lot of interesting ways to find exoplanets. And if you have a sensitive enough telescope and a sensitive enough spectrometer, you can detect even relatively small planets orbiting stars that way with the wobble and the redshift.
It'll be woo, woo, woo. That's how sirens will work. They'll use that Doppler effect on a siren. As it spins around, they get a different sound. A change in pitch. And if you want to really get fancy, you could probably get musical notes. The pitch would be just right by spinning it at a certain speed.
Okay, everybody, or actually just the musically inclined people, what I need you to do is find different size whistles and a machine that will spin them on a string so that you can activate them when they're coming towards or away to create different pitches. And we're going to write a symphony using just whistles on a string. Let's do it. Bent, you're a musician. Get on it.
Let me finish up Kent with Bent first, but then I'll get right on it.
Okay.
Or you could play, B flat and C sharp or something if you want.
Yes, Kent, those are notes. Good job.
So the train is using sound waves, and we know the Doppler effect works with that.
Mm-hmm.
The assumption is...
Nope, not an assumption. This has been measured, Kent. Jesus Christ, Kent. Not everything is an assumption. Some things have actually been measured, Kent. If you want to dispute it, you have to have your own damn measurements, Kent. You can't just say, well, it's just an assumption. No, it's not, Kent. It's been demonstrated. Granted, in measurements of redshift, we now assume the Doppler effect in light because it was previously measured. Just like if, I don't know, I do a lot of stuff on computers, which means I have some of the powers of 2 memorized, right? I don't have to always sit there and multiply two different numbers. I don't have to sit there and multiply 128 times itself with long form multiplication to get to 256. I just have it memorized. It's fine. I can assume it's 256. I know it is. I've done the calculation. Don't worry about it. That's what's happening when people assume the Doppler shift in light. Same thing as what's happening when people assume the decay rate of radioactive elements when doing radiometric dating. They're not actually assumed in the sense of just we just picked a number that seemed reasonable and went with it. They're assumed in the sense that we already measured and demonstrated that this is the case, so now we're not going to do it again constantly.
Maybe the Doppler effect works with light.
I'm just taking a drink for maybe it works with light. This well-established part of physics that everyone knows works and has been measured to work.
So if a star is coming toward us, it'll compress the light waves. If it's going away from us, it'll stretch them out, causing a red shift.
Mm-hmm.
So they say if a star is moving away, the light should be shifted toward the red end of the spectrum. Sounds good, possibly true. Nobody knows for sure. No,
we know for as sure as we know anything in physics, Kent. because we
Nobody
tested it,
knows for sure.
right?
Give me a break, Ken. Come on.
All you need is a really good spectrometer and a light source that you can tell the distance to. That's it. Literally, that's it. As well, as long as you actually know like the rest frequency of that light source. Like you can do this with a laser. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, C flat is the most compelling Flurf argument. Unfortunately, sorry, I just realized what you did there. C flat is the most compelling Flurf argument. Unfortunately, looks like isn't a good way of understanding reality. That is correct. One of my favorite sci-fi things is in Mass Effect. When you're using your Mass Effect drive, the light in front of you, like when you see the ship, the light coming towards the ship is blue, and the light aft of the ship there we go, is reddish because of the Doppler effect and how you're going like faster than light, so it's like extremely amplified and stuff. Is it super realistic? No, but it's a nice nod to the physics of the Doppler effect in light, and I appreciate that. I just hope that the fourth Mass Effect game has not come out yet, and they're working on it now, will be good. Because it will be the fourth.
Are they working on one now?
That is the rumors, yeah.
Really?
By rumors, I mean I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to actually be a sequel to Mass Effect 3, and it'll be set in the Milky Way. Not like that weird fan game that some people pretend was a real Mass Effect game set in the Andromeda Galaxy. It's not going to be one of those. I don't know why people think that's a Mass Effect game. It's clearly like an indie developer who had their first game, but who hired a really good character artist, but didn't bother to hire a rigger, and then just made a fake Mass Effect game. That's the best that I can say is what was going on there. Heather Kuhn, who's been a member for 21 months, says, I'm pretty sure the Doppler shift is measured using stellar emission spectra, so you have a way of detecting the shift. Yep.
What's causing the red shift? Jeffrey Burbridge and Adelaide Hewitt said in an article, A Catalog of Quasars Near and Far, Sky and Telescope Magazine, 94, they said there was an early sign that redshifts reliably indicate the distance. Keep that in mind. They thought, wow, look how far that's redshifted. That proves it's X number zillion miles away.
No, Kent. You're getting the order of operations wrong. First, we used other ways to determine distance, and then noticed that redshift at those distances was always correlated to distance. So the way this goes is, first, we use things like stellar parallax to measure how close nearby objects are. Then we notice that certain classes of objects, like Cepheid variable stars or Type 1a supernovae, things like that, have a constant and well-defined absolute luminosity. That's how bright they would be at a certain distance. I don't remember what the distance is, but it doesn't really matter because any distance that you pick, as long as it's standardized, will work. And then we can say, well, we know the inverse square law for brightness, which means that if we see such objects, we can tell their relative or apparent luminosity, how bright they seem to us, we can use the inverse square law to work out how far away they are. And then we can notice that for such objects that are very far away, they always have a consistent redshift, and that redshift correlates to their distance. So then in even farther objects where we don't have standard candles, which is what those things are called, we can then use the redshift to infer distance. It's not, oh, hey, we noticed that different things have different redshift. What if that just correlated to distance? Sounds nice. That's not how it goes.
The distances of galaxies. For QSOs, abbreviated quasars.
No, QSO stands for quasi-stellar object, which quasar is like a portmanteau for, but QSO isn't abbreviated to the longer quasar, Kent. I'm taking a drink.
Quasi-stellar object called a quasar. However, the diagram shows a wide scatter in apparent brightness at every redshift.
Yep, and that's because quasars aren't standard candles, because they can vary greatly in absolute luminosity. Because when this was written, we didn't know what quasars were. We now know that they're active galactic nuclei. That is, the supermassive black hole at the center of a galaxy is actively taking in mass, which also means that the accretion disk around this star or black hole is starting to increase in its temperature because all that gas and dust and debris is rubbing against each other with friction, which is vastly heating it up and causing things to become ionized. And then there are jets of charged particles that shoot out. And all of this creates immense amounts of light, like crazy amounts of light. Like if the black hole at the center of the Milky Way were a quasar, it would outshine the sun from Earth. That would be brighter than the sun. That's the kind of levels we're talking about. But the fact is that different black holes in different distant galaxies are active at different levels. They're taking in mass at different rates, which means they have different absolute luminosities, which means you can't use them as a standard candle. We didn't always know that. That's all that's happening. Xenomath Navigator for $5 says, Kent sees a distant object rapidly traveling away from him every day. Unfortunately, that object is his first original thought. Yeah. That's some accuracy right there. Hey, we're at 23%. We are slightly behind pace for Bacon Bentware Tutu, but I think we're on pace for Bent Gets Free Pizza.
Nice.
In fact, there is little correlation of brightness to redshift at all.
Yeah, for quasars. That's it. It's for quasars, Kent. There are for things that we know are standard candles, like Type 1a supernovae and Cepheid variable stars.
Either quasars come in an extremely wide range of intrinsic luminosities.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Hey, Kent, why aren't you considering that one?
That means their brightness. Maybe quasars are a lot different brightness. Maybe one quasar is real bright, one's real dim. As most people believe.
Aerododger says, sorry, a nuke is brighter than the sun. Yes, but a nuke is usually much, much closer than Sagittarius A star, some like 12,500 light years or something away?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure exactly.
Or their redshifts do not indicate distance. Here's a guy admitting we don't know that redshift indicates the distance to the stars.
Nope. Kent, look back.
Reading comprehension.
Yep, reading comprehension fail. What was that first one? That the absolute or intrinsic luminosity might vary widely? Yeah, it turns out that's the one. Turns out that's the case. Yep, and it's not that hard to figure out. Like, you just look into this a little bit. Do a little bit of research into how astronomy works. Right? Why is it that we've decided that the answer seems to be that quasars have vastly different brightnesses? Turns out it's because they're a class of object that just can vary wildly. That's it. It's like if you brought a flashlight to, like, I don't know, the depths of the Amazon, to like a previously, not uncontacted necessarily, but like a group of people in the Amazon who had very limited, if any, contact with, like, you know, modern industrial technological society, which there are still a number of people groups that are like that in the Amazon, right? And then you showed them a flashlight or a torch if you're British. They might come to the assumption that all of these are the same brightness. But you know that's not true. You know you can get different brightnesses of flashlight. You can get some that are basically floodlights. You can get those tiny little ones that you put on your keychain that, like, barely light up 5 feet in front of you. But hey, it's enough to not trip, I suppose. Like, you know that. They might not. And they might wonder, are all such magical light devices the same brightness? Turns out, no. And they're not stupid for wondering. It's just something they haven't figured out yet because it's not something that's been part of their experience before. That's what was happening with quasars. We didn't even know until not that long ago that quasars were part of other galaxies. You know, in Star Trek, the original series, there's a bit where Captain Kirk mentions that they have standing orders to investigate any quasars they encounter. You know why? Because they didn't know what quasars were. They didn't know they weren't inside the Milky Way. They didn't know they were inside the Milky Way either. But yeah, it's an offhanded line that's like, oh yeah, we got to investigate any quasars we come across in our investigation of the Milky Way.
Maybe it does. Well, maybe it doesn't. They go on to say, thus, for us, the only conclusion that can be drawn is that at least some quasars are relatively nearby, and that a large fraction of their redshift is due to something other than the expansion of the universe.
Hey, Jeffrey and Hewitt got it wrong. Wow. That happens. That's a thing that scientists do. But you know what the big difference is between scientists who often get things wrong and creationists who often get things wrong? Bent, do you know the difference?
Scientists will correct themselves when they realize they're wrong.
Yup. And that's why this is not a big question in astronomy anymore, where people are like, oh man, quasars, what do we do with quasars? There's such different brightnesses. Yeah, no, we figured it out.
When the redshift was discovered, they look at stars and see the red is shifted over. They say, wow, that star's moving away. Maybe so. We don't know. See one over here. Whew, that's moving away. Wow. If everywhere you look, the stars are moving away.
It's not the stars, Kent. The stars that we can see in the sky are primarily inside the Milky Way and very nearby galaxies. The things that are consistently redshifted are other galaxies. See, Kent doesn't know the difference between a galaxy, a star, the solar system, and the universe. And my evidence for this...
It really doesn't.
Yeah. Which, by the way, let's take a drink for that, because Kent does not know the first thing about this. So my first clue to this, that Kent just did not fundamentally understand the difference between, like, the solar system and stars and galaxies and the universe, is that he frequently uses a page from an old textbook about the nebular hypothesis for solar system formation to talk about the Big Bang.
I was hoping you'd mention that.
Yep.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, he does that all the time. That's his go-to example for what textbooks say about the Big Bang. But it's about the formation of the solar system. Something that happened like almost 10 billion years later. 9-point-something billion years later. Kent fundamentally does not understand the most basic aspects about what objects in space are. So, yeah, let's hit play.
You come to the conclusion, well, that means they must have all been together. And there was a Big Bang.
I mean, he is right. That is the basic idea that the Big Bang comes from, is like, well, if they're spreading apart now, that means earlier they were closer together. And there's nothing that obviously would stop them from doing that indefinitely into the past. So I guess at some point they were all more or less in the same place. Of course, they were stars at that point, but like, you know, the universe as a whole used to all be in the same place.
Because after all, they're all moving away. Well, don't you see what an assumption you have here?
I mean, other than the basic assumption of science that the laws of physics are largely time and space invariant? No. Which is just the basic assumption that makes induction work, right? Because, okay, here's a problem. Let's say, let's say every morning I wake up and make coffee at 8 a.m. I make the coffee at 8 a.m. so that at 8:30 there's a pot of coffee. Okay. Let's say that Bent decides to start relying on this. So he always times when he wakes up to be right around the time that the coffee is finished. Okay. And every day I do that for 2 whole years. Does that mean I'm going to do it the next day?
Not necessarily.
Right. You can't just say, well, because he did it, 700 something times before, well, he'll be doing it again. You don't know that. But for science to work, we kind of have to just assume that, yeah, you do know that. You do actually know that. We're going to go with that. And so technically, that is illogical unless you make some otherwise unsubstantiated assumptions. In other words, unless you have an axiom, right? Or a few axioms. And one of the axioms of science is that the universe operates the way it operates now, in the past, in the future, here, and over there. And that is why we can say, well, we picked up this bowling ball and it dropped at 9.8 meters per second. when we dropped it off of this building. I think if I drop this screw off of this other building at a different height, it will also fall at 9.8 meters per second per second. And then we just use that as a prediction. So if Kent wants to just completely ignore induction entirely and thereby invalidate all of science according to his own belief system, he can do that, right? But what he can't then do is say that science isn't doing science right, because what he wants science to do is to just stop. If we get rid of the basic assumption of science that physics works the same here and there, then and now, then there just is no science that we can do. We can't ever say that just because we were able to get an electrical charge to be held on some doped silicon with, a little charge that's a priming charge on a transistor, that it'll work the same way tomorrow, and therefore we can build a computer off of these, making logic gates out of transistors. We couldn't say that unless induction works. So when Kent says, well, how do you know it worked the same in the past? Like, I don't know, Kent. But that's literally what science is at the most basic level. It's saying, yeah, the universe works the same yesterday and today, and it will work the same tomorrow. Okay, we got a couple super chats here. Inquisitive Infidel for $2 says, classic sci-fi mixed up galaxy and solar system. Yeah, that is actually something that I don't like, especially with Star Trek. Star Trek will say things are intergalactic when they mean interstellar. You'd be like, oh, we're going to start an intergalactic war. That would mean a war between galaxies. That would be like a war with Andromeda. When you have a war between the Klingon Empire and the Romulan Star Empire, that's not an intergalactic war. It's an intragalactic war, or it's an interstellar war. Well, stop it, Star Trek. Star Trek also likes to mix up sentient and sapient.
Come on, Star Trek. Be better.
I really like Star Trek, but there are places where it's just like, guys, stop it. Stop it. Do better. Anyway, Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, it's a big ask to identify stellar objects when a object permanence is beyond you. Yeah, you get a good point there. All right, and now I need to update this because I had not been updating it while I read, and we are at 25%. We're moving along. We're definitely on pace for a Steam key.
First, you're assuming the redshift means they're moving away.
No, that's been measured, Kent. That absolutely does mean that. Unless you have new measurements to present us. And somehow, I doubt that Kent has a spectrometer good enough to measure the redshift of objects that are moving relative to him that are emitting light at the spectrometer. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. I've even been wrong about Kent before. But I doubt it.
Which we don't know.
We do.
Are there other things that might cause this?
No. Nope.
I think there is. And we'll get to that in a second. In science.
Oh, you do? What do you have? You say we'll get to that in a second. This video has 2 minutes and 46 seconds left, Kent. You should get to it now, because otherwise you're just not going to get to it, and that was a lie.
Science News 95, September 9th, they said, another set of observations indicates that the universe appears to be...
Science News. I'm just going to take a drink for Kent being incapable of citing a peer-reviewed source. I don't think he knows what one is. Okay.
4.8 to 10.6 billion years old. Now, wait a minute. I've got textbooks that say it's 20 billion years old.
Yeah, it turns out that when we were first discovering redshift, and we had not terribly reliable measurements of it, that there were a lot of different estimates given, and a lot of them had different error bars, and some of them had systematic errors that were a problem for that particular measurement. Some of them didn't. And as time has gone on, this number has settled closer and closer and closer to, 13.8? Yeah, and now it's not really moving much around. See, this is one of those things that Kent does all the time. He's like, well, this number has changed a whole bunch. It's like, well, but has it kept changing, right? Like if you take a look at published estimates for the age of the universe over time, like you graph on the y-axis, you graph the measured age or the proposed estimate. And then on the x-axis, you graph years starting from the first published estimate, which would probably be in the 40s or something. And then you move forward in time to the present. What you would see is that at first you would have a bunch of peaks and valleys where just very different numbers are being given. But then as you go forward, that variance between them starts to shrink down. And now it's basically just going to be a line. That's what we call getting better precision and accuracy.
How do you revise it down to 8.4? I said 4.6, 8.4.
Different instrument, maybe some instrument error. I don't know what the margins of error were, even though you just reported some range. Because frankly, I don't trust a non-peer-reviewed source to give me the accurate error range or error margin. So like, yeah.
Billion. Well, to calculate the age of the universe, they've got an equation which includes what's called the Hubble constant, named after the guy named Hubble. That the telescope is also named after the Hubble Space Telescope. The new work relied on the Hubble.
Yeah, Fear Amen is Englishmonger says, as Ken previously established, that just means that it's actually changing over time. Yeah, that is the only option.
Hubble Space Telescope to obtain distance to faraway galaxies. A team led by Neil Tanver of University of Cambridge in England used a two-step method to estimate the Hubble constant. First, they observed a type of standard candle known as Cepheid variables to find the distance to the spiral galaxy M96.
Borg Emporia, who's been a member for 27 months and is at the amniote level, says AIG is a bag of pelagic tunicates to take 2 drinks for Godzilla and Turtle and Bjorn. You know what? I'll take 2 drinks. That's fine. I'll take 2. Okay.
You have to be careful about drawing conclusions because of the Hubble constant. Measurements have huge systematic errors.
Yeah, I'm sure they did in 1995. It's 30 years later. We've got much better instruments. We've got much bigger telescopes. That, concern has largely gone away.
Suppose I was going to calculate the population of the Earth in 100 years. And I say, well, the population grows by 8% every year. And I do that times for 100 years. Isn't my answer I come up with dependent on the numbers I put into that equation? That 8% determines everything about the outcome of the answer, doesn't it? Suppose I found out, oops, it's really only 2%. Greatly modifies your number.
Ken, I don't know that as a creationist you really want to be talking about population projections and your predictions based on them, because I've seen creationists do that and they're really, really, really bad at it. But yeah, I guess technically the analogy kind of works. Yeah, if you get an estimate wrong, you'll get the calculation wrong. Like, sure. But again, our number has been getting narrower and narrower and narrower and varying less and less and less. Now, there is the crisis in cosmology, which could actually cause it to take a big jump to a new value, but it wouldn't be swinging around wildly. It would just go to that new value because of new very good measurements once we resolve that issue.
What if oops is only 0.5%? The Hubble constant is one of the multipliers in the equation.
It is not really a constant.
It's not a constant. All you got to do is change that number a little bit, and all of a sudden the universe is no longer 20 billion years old. Now it's only 8.4. Hubble constant is a far cry from a constant. Even the nearest Cepheids are so...
Actually, he's ironically right about that. I'm going to take a drink because the Hubble constant does seem to have changed throughout time. Because the Hubble constant isn't like... It's not like a physical constant like the fine structure constant or the speed of light. It is something that can change because it's not like a law of nature. It's a current value for the expansion of the universe, and that rate can change. In the past, it turns out that it was probably lower. So, like, Kent's kind of right that the Hubble constant isn't a constant, but he's not right in the way he wants to be.
so remote, it's difficult to determine their absolute distance with any great accuracy, this guy says. All large distances in astronomical literature are subject to an error of perhaps 10% from this cause alone.
But Kent, you need a 7 orders of magnitude error. A 10% error that's 1 order of magnitude. You need 6 more, buddy. You need 6 more. How are you going to do that? Where's that going to come from? Like, it's just so crazy. It'd be like if it was like, hey, Bent, I'm gonna take a road trip to Anchorage.
All right.
And you're like, okay, well, it's probably going to take a lot of gas. And I'm like, yeah, well, I looked at your estimates for how much gas it's going to take for me to go there, and I think you're off. And I can see places where you might be off by as much as 10%. So I think it's going to take me 2 liters. Like, no.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
It's definitely not going to work.
You're going to run out of gas before you get out of the city.
Yeah. I don't care how much Ben's estimates might vary by as much as 10%. Doesn't matter. My estimate of 2 liters is definitely not going to work.
10% error is pretty big amount.
Yeah, but not nearly big enough, Kent. Kent, you need like a 7 million % error. It's not going to happen. It's actually bigger than that. It's a lot bigger than that. What am I talking about? Way bigger than that.
We know that faintness, now here's what they do. They look at a star and say, wow, that one's bright. Must be close.
No, that's not. Oh my God.
Who does that?
No one does that. I'm taking another drink. The apparent magnitude is a combination of the intrinsic magnitude and the distance. We have to know 2 of those in order to derive the third one, Kent. We don't just look at a star and be like, oh man, I guess it's bright, must be close by. One of the closest stars is Barnard's star. It's not visible with the human eye. You know why? Because it's a brown dwarf. It doesn't emit enough light in the visible spectrum to be visible to the human eye. You can only see it in infrared telescopes. But it's still one of the closest. I think it's like the 3rd closest star to the solar system. You can't see it. How do we know it's the 3rd closest star? Well, parallax. And despite the fact that it's very dim, we still know it's really close.
That one's dim, must be far away.
Nope, not a thing that
Error in
anyone's
logic
doing.
right there.
I mean, it would be an error in logic if that were the logic that anyone were using. Also, there's 17 seconds. How's he going to finish this thought? How's he going to get to Cepheid variables, as he calls them?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's called faintness. How bright is the star?
It's called luminosity, not faintness. What? I'm just taking another drink. For Kent can't get even the basic terms in astronomy right.
Faintness. Nice.
What's the faintness of that star? Is that a faintness level 3 over there?
The faintness arises from 2 causes: distance and absorbing matter.
And how intrinsically bright the star is, Kent. There's a third one. Why do you keep using sources from like the 70s and the 90s and the 60s, Kent? What are you talking about? What?
There's a cloud in the way. Something's absorbing the light. I could shine a bright spotlight through something that would make it look very dim to you.
And that's where the video ends, everybody. I'm pretty sure there used to be more, but that's what we've got. All right, so here's what's going to happen. We are at about the halfway point. I'm going to get up and stretch a little bit. Maybe see how, I'm feeling. We're going to come back. I do already have the next one queued up and ready to go. So, yeah, we're good on that. Now we'll have a fresh drink, and we will do the, the middle of the intermission thing, and then we'll see how far we can get. And, yeah. In the meantime, though, please enjoy the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind. Okay, we are back. Thank you for sticking with us, those of you who did, which looks like probably most of you. Let's see. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, I see that someone looks very dim. I see that someone looks very dim to me. And then he opens his mouth and looks even dimmer. Thank you. All right. So this is, we've got CSE 104 Class 7 queued up here. So, we got the next one. Hopefully this one doesn't just end abruptly. Or, you know what? Maybe that's okay. But before we get into that, I do want to say thank you so much to everyone who has super chatted or who has membership milestone chatted or any of those other things, who's a member or a patron. This channel is almost entirely supported directly by the contributions that you guys give me, whether it be on Patreon and super chats, joining the memberships, giving gifted memberships, super stickers, super thanks, any of those things. Without them, frankly, the channel wouldn't continue. And YouTube has been making it a little rough lately. They have been putting down a lot of the views for a lot of channels like mine. Not all of them, not to the same degree, but yeah, it's been a little rough in some cases. My channel has recently been doing a little bit better in those terms, but also it's always stressful, right? I never know what's going to happen at the end of the month. I don't know if this month I'm going to be in the red or the black. And when you help with that, that is how I get into the black. So if you are currently someone who enjoys the channel, what we do here, and you are not financially supporting, but you can afford to, and you're interested in doing so, there are a number of great ways to do so. Obviously, you can super chat, you can membership milestone, well, you can send super stickers, you can send gifted memberships. Obviously, those all help. Also, many of them cause drink triggers, so they're a lot of fun. But if you want to help in a more regular and easy to predict way, there is the Patreon. The Patreon starts at $1 a month. There's a 15% discount for going annually. I get to keep the most there, so it's the one I would most prefer. There's also the channel memberships. I only get 70% of what's there, but it's still way better than not joining. That starts at $1.99 a month. Both of them give you early access to my videos, my scripted videos, obviously. I don't have a time machine yet that will give you early access to my live streams. But hey, maybe if I get enough funding, I'll be able to invent one. You never know. But it also gives you access to my Discord server, which I think is a really fun place. I can't say there's never problems there, but overall, it's a really cool place with really cool people and also really cool pet pictures. So, and then sometimes you can just randomly send me something written in Greek, misidentify what is written in, and then ask me to translate it, and I'll do it anyway. Sometimes that happens. So, please consider checking those out. Of course, if an annual or a monthly subscription isn't your jam, always sending super chats helps. There's also, I have a Throne wish list, which, by the way, Throne sends me way more emails about my wish list than Amazon ever did. They're like, hey, did you know that people really like this salmon-colored clutch? And I'm like, I didn't know that, Throne. Thank you for telling me. I don't particularly want a salmon-colored clutch, but it's nice to know that it's a popular item on your website. Or they'll say things like, hey, we have rankings. And I'm like, oh my God, do I not want to know what my ranking is compared to other wish lists? But I appreciate it. So yeah, it's a little bit weird. It's a very different experience than having the Amazon wish list. But hey, Amazon decided to dox everybody, so not doing that anymore. Also, there is a merch store. We have baby onesies. We have t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, stickers, blankets, pillows, phone cases, all sorts of cool stuff. So if that's something that you like, feel free to head over there and grab one of those. Yeah, also, if you can't afford to do any of those things, please like and share this video, especially share it. Use the actual share button. It will allow a little tag that indicates that you shared this with the share button, and then send it to people, email it to them, send them to it on social media, post it on your social medias, that stuff. That all helps. And then last but not least, we have the Sheepit. So I get my 3D animations done with a render farm called Sheepit. If you want to help me with that, what you do is there is a section called How to Render for Me down in the description. Follow those instructions. You'll go to a website that's linked. You will download the client appropriate to your operating system. You will install that, and then you will log in with the login information that is in the description. That will basically let Sheepit think that you're me, but you won't get access to my account, so you can't delete it or upload your own projects on it. So that is also a really big help. And it's not technically free because it costs you compute cycles on your GPU or CPU. But like, those are close to free, right? Like it's basically like the difference to your power bill between running a video game and not running a video game. Which isn't nothing, but it's not a big deal. For most people, at least. All right, we have a few more. We have one more salmon super chat. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $2 says, is it made with real salmon? I think it's made with pleather. I think it was pleather, but I didn't really look into it too much. I just noticed that it was salmon colored, and that it was a clutch, and that it did look rather stylish if I were the kind of person who normally dressed in a way that a salmon colored clutch would like accent, but I don't. I'm very much like a t-shirt and like shorts, because it's Arizona kind of guy. So there's not much call for a salmon colored clutch in those circumstances. I feel like if I wore a lot more skirts and did my nails up and maybe did a lot more hair removal, then maybe the salmon clutch would work for me. Lieutenant Math Navigator gifts 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So let's increment that drink counter 5 times. Oh, that's not what the increment button is doing. I'm on the wrong window. Hold on. That's a Dapper's a professional, so we'll do it 6 times. And while I take these 6 drinks, Bent is going to tell you his least favorite part about Dungeons and Dragons.
If I like teamwork so much, obviously what I wouldn't like would be like solo work. Or like, what about working with your enemies? Maybe that's the worst part. Because then you're conniving. Maybe.
That is a weird answer.
I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it.
That is a weird answer.
Thank you.
My least favorite part is that tiny little animals like a crab can kill the average human in like 90 seconds, which seems weird and dumb.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, well, the average human has about 4 hit points, and an average crab deals like 1 damage on a successful hit, and it's going to do about half of those. So like 8 turns or so is a pretty good time to kill an average human from a crab. Which like...
Interesting.
And each turn is like 10 seconds or 6 seconds, one of those, I don't remember. So, like, that's weird. I guess it's 6 seconds. Yeah. So, like, yeah, that seems like a really short time for a crab, like a non-magical but large crab to kill someone. Seems unrealistic to me.
How big are these crabs?
Like the size of a cat. So, like, a normal-sized crab for a big crab.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems to be a little too easy to kill a human.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, the human will probably kill the crab first because they have a better chance of having weapons that deal more damage. But still, even if you were tied up and unarmed, I feel like it would take more than 6 turns for a crab to kill you in real life, even if it's a big crab.
I agree.
All right, welcome to Class 7 of our CSE 104.
Thank you,
We got a lot to cover here in the next couple of weeks to try to finish this, or else we have to go to Class CSE 105 and 106 and finish it.
Oh, 105. I thought he meant class like 8 or something. I was like, aren't there 10 of these? And then that was just me being stupid. Okay, never mind. Continue, Kent. Sorry, that was me. Sometimes I'm the stupid one.
Okay, we're dealing with the question right now, why did God use a flood? Why not just have all the bad people die? I get asked this question surprisingly frequently.
I mean, it's a pretty good question, right? Because the flood involves the mass death of a whole bunch of organisms that, like, no one can really say are morally culpable for anything that was going on, including all the baby humans, right? So, like, it's a good question. Why couldn't God, if he's omnipotent, just snap his fingers and have all the bad people die? And then there's no, like, crazy genocide. There's no, like, absurd ecological catastrophe. Noah doesn't have to build a big stupid boat. Seems like everything's better for everyone that way. So yeah, if you're going to say that God actually did kill all these people and he did it with a flood, it is one of the more obvious questions. Why? Why is that a good idea? Why is that better than just poof, everyone's dead?
Why make Noah go to all that work to build this big boat and destroy the whole world? Couldn't God just as easily say, okay, everybody die except Noah, you're okay?
Well, presumably, and his family, right?
Interesting question. Why use a flood? Well, some points to ponder. I don't know the answer, by the way. I just give you my opinions on this. The flood left evidence.
Hey, Bent, what?
I'm not done blinking my eyes. Hold on.
Okay. The flood left evidence.
I'm trying to think of what evidence the flood left.
Yeah, me too. I'm coming up with nothing. I got nothing for evidence of the flood. What are you coming up with?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Is it all the puddles left behind? But like, that's not a global flood.
No.
That's just when it rains.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna take a drink for how dumb that is. The flood left evidence. Okay, sure. I mean, if it had, that might have been a good reason, but it didn't.
A miracle would not. That's the thing about miracles, you know.
Wasn't the flood a miracle?
Yes.
Okay, so
It would have to be, because it didn't
well,
leave evidence.
God had to use a miracle, so it would leave evidence, because if he used a miracle, it wouldn't leave evidence. Okay, cool. Cool, Kent.
You have no way to prove that they actually happened. It's just, you know, you tell them it did, and then that's it, okay?
Kent, I happen to know that you think that you can demonstrate that the resurrection happened, but I want to point out that if what you just said about miracles, Kent, is true, then no, you can't demonstrate that the resurrection happened. So, yeah.
Secondly, the effects of the flood are still here to remind us.
That's the same as the first point. That's just the evidence is still. Are you Eric Dubé, whose 200 proofs that the Earth is not a spinning ball is actually like 8 proofs, just repeated over and over and over ad nauseum? My goodness. All right, we got a couple of super chats. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, what about Kent's personal life gives the impression that he thinks someone else's family was important? He doesn't even think his own family is important, except as it serves as a boost to his own ego. And then, let's see, Inquisitive Infidel for $5 says, just venting after dealing with some Space Nine Facebookers. Ew. Artemis really has knocked the worms out of the wood. Yeah, I've seen that. Like, even some of like the NASA official live streams were like full of flat earthers and moon hoaxers and stuff like that. It's been real dumb. And the thing is, like, I know that like if Apollo 17 had like Facebook at the time, it probably would have been similarly dumb. But it didn't. So like we didn't have to deal with that. And in case anyone's wondering, yeah, the pain is getting worse. And so I'm not positive I'm going to do Star Trek because I might want to just go lay down.
This would be a corollary to number one. The flood left evidence, but
it's not a corollary, Ken. It's just the same thing. Corollary would be like something that follows on from that, but this is just the same thing.
Reminds us of the judgment. And I think if we had a proper scriptural perspective on the world, you could look at fossils and see judgment of God. I mean,
in other words, if you just assume that the flood story is true and that the flood is the cause of all the fossil-bearing strata, then the fossil-bearing strata are obvious proof of Noah's flood. Hey, some
wild assumptions there.
What was the shape of that argument?
Circular.
Oh man! And circular arguments, are they good or bad?
They're good for Kent. Well, he thinks they're good.
Okay. What do people generally think?
In general, no, they're not good.
Not good. Okay, not good. Got it.
When you see a fossil saber-tooth, one guy told me this looked like his mother-in-law.
I want to point out that saber-tooth cats are considered to be post-flood by virtually all young Earth creationists. So, yeah, especially since they say that Felidae is a kind that was brought on the Ark, and that all the felids evolved from that original felid kind that was on the Ark, which would mean that saber-toothed cats are a felid kind. Now, there is also another group of animals that are very similar to cats, but aren't quite cats. Nimvirids, I believe, is the name of the group. And they're almost cats. They're also saber-toothed group members of this group, and they would have been presumably a different kind. But like, yeah, I wonder what does. Oh, actually, we already know, right? Because Kent never bothers to tell you what a kind is, so that way anything he wants can just be his example, right? So yeah, maybe this saber-tooth was caught in the flood. He doesn't care. He doesn't know what a cat kind is. He doesn't know where the borders are. He doesn't even try. It's all just wishy-washy.
Jeff, you might want to consider that one. This fossils, this represents death.
It doesn't represent death. It's a result of death. But like, I'll let it go. It's fine.
And suffering, you know.
You don't know that cat didn't die peacefully in its sleep, Kent. I mean, it also probably caused a lot of suffering with those gigantic teeth. So like, whatever. It's fine. I'm just being a dick.
God hates sin. Fossils represent the hatred that God has toward man's sin. And I think what's happened, Satan is using this type of thing to, he's got people's minds twisted in where they see fossils as evidence for evolution.
Well, the big difference there, Kent, is that when you go out into the field and you say, I want to dig up fossils, and what I know about fossils is that they're caused by sin, that doesn't give you too many clues as to where to dig to find what you're looking for. On the other hand, when people use evolutionary biology to predict where to find new fossils, they tend to get it right. So that's why we see it as evidence of evolution, is because we can use evolution to predict fossils, but we can't really use sin to predict fossils. It would be cool if we could, right? Because then a paleontologist could just be like, you know what? I'm going to find the biggest fossil of my life and just have a rager with a bunch of hookers and blow, and then find a great fossil because of all the sin. But that isn't how it works. In fact, that would probably be like a misappropriation of grant money. Probably.
Most likely.
Yeah, most likely. Unless you put it in your budget proposal. Like, if that's the case, then you just have to worry about the local laws. And at least for the hookers part, there's plenty of parts of Nevada that'll work. So, like, I don't know. Now I want to see someone write a paleontology grant proposal for a dig in Nevada that includes, like, a hospitality section that just gets used in a legal brothel in Nevada. I think that would be amusing. Let's see. Inquisitive Infidel for $2 says, Kent thinks unfalsifiable is a good argument. True, he does. He seems to think that you can't prove me wrong is like a good thing instead of like, oh no, that's bad. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, why would he need the flood to show how cursed the earth is when he could just show Tanystrophiid fossil? Oh yeah, Tanystrophiid fossils. Yeah, Tanystrophius and the Tanystrophiids. They're like these weird lizard-like. Are they? I don't even know if they're diapsids. I think they're some kind of sauropsid. Well, they have these absurd giraffe necks. It's crazy. Tanystrophiid fossils are crazy. Although, what are the arboreal archosauromorphs? What were those things called? The ones with like the weird sloth claws and the like the scorpion tail. Those guys are even more cursed.
Idea.
Yeah, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they were even more cursed. Templar Warden for $5 Kiwi dollars says, why isn't there a reward for Dapper being a professional? Running these streams regularly without mistakes seems worth a celebratory drink. Well, you know what? Thank you. I'll take a celebratory drink. The real key, though, is if you want me to take celebratory drinks, gifted memberships. So the actual reason that I have a drink for those is because I like them because it lets other people kind of hang out in the Discord and get early access and stuff. And then some fraction of those people are actually going to join like the Patreon or the channel memberships themselves of their own volition. So that's why I super encourage those. Plus, it's just fun.
You know, Satan uses everything he can. He doesn't have anything original. So this reminds us of God's judgment. Thirdly, it gave them a preparation time. People could see this ark going up every day. Walk by, hear the hammer pounding the nails, and say, man.
So I want to point out that this is not part of the Bible. This is part of various extra biblical traditions, and it does pop up in the Quran that Noah was going around preaching. But like in Genesis, that doesn't show up. So you have to put stuff from outside of Genesis into Genesis. Oh, and speaking of extra memberships, Jessica Transmetal Alchemist has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you very much, which puts us at 45%, and I'm going to take 5 drinks while Ben, tells us his most medium thing about Dungeons & Dragons.
It's the teamwork from the other team that you're going up against, like in a sporting event when 2 teams play. You have your teamwork, and then the other team, you know, they're just trying their best too. But like it's a competition, so you want to win.
I feel like it's been a very long time since you played Dungeons & Dragons.
It has been years, yes.
Okay. All right. Here we go. I'm going to... actually, could you drink this... goodness. Could you read this super chat from Lieutenant Matt the Navigator while I create a poll?
Okay, from Lieutenant Matt the Navigator, if Edward Drinker Cope was a working paleontologist today, his grant proposals would have, quote, virtue, negotiation, and blow as line items. It's true. It's very true.
I agree. And I did add it to the counter, and we're very close to giving away a Steam key.
I better get right with God. So that's my take on it. The Bible says in 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse number 20, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was a preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water.
And right there is another reason why, like, stop using the KJV. I have trouble parsing that, and it's modern English. In fact, actually, I might have an easier time if it were like Chaucer. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, Henry Fairfield Osborne would have competitive racism as the first line item. oh, not wrong. Jeez. You know what? The Osborne and Cope hate is fair, but also Renee Reborn over and over and over sends 5 Dapper Dinosaur gift memberships, which means, Bent, you have to tell me what you most left about Dungeons and Dragons.
What
you most left?
What I most left about?
Yeah.
Dungeons
And if we get
Dragons?
5
I
more,
don't
you'll have to tell
understand
us.
what that means.
It doesn't matter. You just tell us.
Well, there's left and there's right, but then you can go in the middle too. So I would say it depends on which turn signal you're using.
In
If
Dungeons
you're
and
not using any
Dragons.
turn signals, you just go straight.
Right.
Yeah, in Dungeons and Dragons, of course.
Got it. Okay.
Because turn signals are important everywhere.
Sure. Jessica Transmental Alchemist for $5 redo says, Satan never does anything original. I'm all on board with the suggestion that Satan's biggest crime is actually his derivativeness. I like it. By the way, Bent, I asked in the poll, is it time for Bent to play more D&D? That's the poll.
Nice. I voted Turtle. I voted, but I'm not going to say how I voted.
Oh, okay. If it's yes, you're now legally bound to play more D&D.
So, 1 Peter chapter 3 tells us that the long suffering of God was evidenced here. While the ark was being prepared, people could see. It's demonstrated the long suffering of God. Okay, next question. Is the sun shrinking?
Yes. It is. What do you think he's going to say?
I have no idea. I don't even think I knew the sun was shrinking.
Well, think about it,
It's
right?
such a weird question to ask.
Some of the energy it gives off is because the helium it produces is slightly lighter than the hydrogen that went to fuse it, right? And then extra mass is kicked out in energy and a neutrino.
Yes, that's true.
Which means the sun has to be shrinking in terms of its mass, at least.
It is. I know it's losing mass, so I guess I knew it was shrinking after all.
Yeah.
But it's not something I ever thought about. Like, is the sun shrinking? And I don't know why.
What if it disappears? Now, there was a previous hypothesis that the reason the sun was hot was because of it shrinking as a result of, like, just infalling from gravity before we knew about things like nuclear fusion and stuff. And so that was a weird thing because we were like, well, if that's what's happening, and it seems like it could be, well, then how long until the sun shrinks down to its minimum size and then it cools off? And like that was like a concern. Like, is that a thing we should worry about? And turns out, no, we don't need to worry about that because it's not where the sun gets its energy. But, before we knew that, it was a valid concern.
In the early days of my seminar, I used to share something. One of the evidences for a young Earth, or a young universe at least, was the idea that the sun is shrinking. Here's the graph showing the recorded measurements of the sun in the last 160, 70 years. The data shows that, yes, the sun is shrinking. This is from the Royal Greenwich Observatory.
It's Greenwich, but who cares?
Now, this chart and this concept of the sun shrinking takes a lot of flack from the evolution.
Oh my goodness, I just realized we went past 50%, which means it is time for me to put in a Steam key for Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr. Now, Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor is actually a single game that's spread across a few different like purchasable titles that are standalone titles, but there is like cross-play between those different titles, and they're all basically the same game, which is to say it is an action RPG with a sort of isometric perspective like Diablo or Path of Exiles, if those are games that you really like. And so what I am going to do is I'm going to paste this key, and then if you try to use it, just tell me whether it works or tell me if it doesn't. And you do not need to be a member. You don't have to be a patron. You don't have to have super chatted. You don't have to have given any gift memberships or stickers or anything. You just got to be quick and tell me. Those are the only 2 requirements. This is free, no purchase necessary. There you go. Which also puts us not super close, but we could get Bent free pizza. He could be able to eat today.
That would be nice.
You can tell that he's been starving because his beard is even shrinking.
It's true. Just like the sun, my beard is shrinking.
They will say, well, the sun is oscillating. It shrinks for a while and then it expands for a while.
Which is true in terms of its diameter, which is what this is suggesting. Or what this is about, not suggesting, sorry. I'm just looking at the thing that says data suggests the sun is shrinking, and that the word suggest got into my brain. It actually kind of happens to me a lot if I'm reading a word. There's a fair chance that word is just going to come out in the next sentence I say.
This, I think if you still look at the graph, you can see, yes, that's true. The sun does shrink and expand and shrink and expand. The top number is the horizontal diameter of the sun. The bottom number is the vertical. That would be North Pole to South Pole of the sun. Because the sun, because it is spinning, is slightly bulged.
Zerolon says, I snagged it. Key worked. Awesome. Congratulations to Zerolon for getting currently my final Steam key, which is for Inquisitor Martyr. So good luck scouring the galaxy of the forces of chaos on behalf of the God Emperor on Terra. And I don't know. I'll give you a random aphorism from Warhammer. Bent, give me a random number from 1 to 100. It has to be a whole number.
3.
It's a really low one, but abhor the Xenos. That is my random aphorism. Give me one more. I want to do one more.
69.
Ooh, that's a good one. Where's 69? Sacrifice all on the altar of battle. There you go. Okay, enough of that.
Like the Earth is, slightly bulged. The equatorial distance is a little greater than the polar distance. So the observation is, hey, the sun is shrinking. The overall works out to be an average of about 5 feet per hour in the time it's been observed and recorded. Okay. There are a couple of problems with this. I will have to say, I'll give it a qualified yes, I believe the sun is shrinking. Okay. And I think it is still evidence that the universe is young. However, I don't use this in my seminar as in part 1, as one of the evidences the Earth is young, because the jury's still out on what's causing the sun to burn.
I'm sorry, what?
That's peak Hovind right there.
This was a talk given in like 2006. What do you mean the jury's still out, Kent? It's fusion. It's been fusion well established since like what, the 70s, the 80s?
A long time.
I'm taking a drink. I can't. What do you mean the jury's still out? Is this like there are good arguments on both sides, geocentrism and heliocentrism, Ken? Is that one of those things? Oh, D-Wing says, oh my god, say the air in space. Yes. I hope he says the sun is on fire and it needs oxygen.
He did say it's burning.
Yeah, but I'm willing to say that could be metaphorical, right? Because I might talk that way.
If Kent wants to take things literally, so will I.
True. I'm not saying he's definitely using it metaphorically. I'm just saying I'm okay with saying that might be what's happening.
Basically, 2 different theories of why does the sun burn?
Okay. I think there's one. I think there's one theory, and I think there's some crackpot shit. I'll just say it. That you're about to give us. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $2 says, no wonder he and Matt Powell got along for a bit. It's true. I am very happy though that Matt Powell got his kids out of that situation. Like, jeez. And I want to think that a big part of it was the fact that Kent was having a PDF file just hang out there all the time, including letting him sleep in a house alone with a small boy in a room that had literally nothing but a mattress on it or in it. And then what do you know? That boy reported having what happened be exactly what you think would happen.
One theory is it's just simply a ball of fire, gas burning, and gravitational collapse keeps the pressure up, which keeps the heat up. It's just so much gravity, so heavy. The pressure is enough to keep it ignited and keep it burning, or whatever.
Okay. I want to point out that is actually what I had pointed out previously as an actual idea that people had about the sun, was gravitational collapse was what was keeping it hot. So at the time this talk was given, that was completely, like, absolutely ruled out. But at least that's an actual idea that people had, right? Like, he's not just making it up. The Screen Geek for €5 says, Jesus Christ, my cat woke me up so early I am actually catching Ken with Ben live. With a crying, laughing face. It's like 4 a.m. Hi, Bent. Nice to see you. AIG is a bundle of Hovinds. We'll take a drink for that.
Hello. How are you?
Awesome. All right, let me add that value in here, which, by the way, I just accept whatever value, YouTube says it is. So, like, I'm not doing the unit conversions. They are. All right, here we go.
Of course, with no oxygen up there, the sun's not burning by burning up oxygen, like oxidation, like we have here on Earth.
Okay, so he's smarter than Matt Powell. He knows it's not on fire with oxidation. Okay, good job, Ken. You know what? I'll take a drink for you getting that right, because I know people you know who got that wrong much more recently than this talk. So I think, can we confirm that Matt Powell is dumber than Kent Hovind?
Yeah, it's possible.
Huh.
Yeah,
It does seem that way, at least on this topic.
sure does.
Hey, good job, Kent. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, Kent probably is disappointed he didn't get invited to a certain island. Oh, yeah, like Elon Musk. God. Have you read any of those emails of Elon Musk begging to be led onto Epstein's island for one of the parties? And then
I have not.
it's so pathetic. He's sitting there, he's writing letters like he's like a 12-year-old schoolgirl writing to her crush who's on like the football team or something. He's like, hey, can you tell me when one of the next big parties is? I want to go to the craziest, wildest party. Thanks. And then later you see Epstein forward Ghislaine Maxwell this email with an attached message from him saying, deal with this. And then you see Ghislaine Maxwell send a message back to Elon Musk saying, oh, sorry, we canceled the most recent one, but I'll definitely let you know. It's just like, oh my God. Imagine being the billionaire who's too lame to go to the Epstein sex abuse party. Jeez. And then later he was like, well, I never really wanted to go to that island. No, I didn't want to. Really? Well, we saw the emails, buddy. You really wanted to go. And they wouldn't let you in. Yeah, definite senpai notice me energy, as Eris Rose points out. Yeah, it's super gross, DM Wing.
The other theory is that the sun is a nuclear reactor.
I mean, kind of. Normally when you say nuclear reactor, I think of fission reactors, whereas the sun is a fusion reactor, but like it's still nuclear and it's still reacting, so like, okay.
If the sun is burning by nuclear fusion,
Which it is.
It could burn for billions and billions of years.
Like 5 more.
With that much fuel. You figure a nuclear submarine can take a golf ball sized piece of fuel and sail around for a couple of years, before it burns it up.
I'm now actually thinking, like, is that roughly what the equivalent is? And I think that's not far off, but that's not how, like, it works. You don't, like, drop a golf ball of uranium into the reactor. But you know what? If I say too much more, technically I'm revealing classified information, because the way I got it was in fact classified. So I can't tell you about it. And as much as I'm not a big fan of the government of the former United States of America, I'm still not going to divulge classified information because I'm not that dumb. Which, by the way, I had someone tell me that, like, when you use the former, I noticed that you're using the former United States. The United States has never actually been this great country that you now think is lost or anything. I'm like, dude, I am not talking about this as if the United States has lost some great ideal that it used to have, like some great moral authority or anything. I'm literally using this because the United States was a country founded via some constitution that it has now abandoned. And because it is no longer operating under the Constitution which authorized it in the first place, it has ceased to effectively exist as a country. That's why I'm using it. It's like a legal analysis, not a moral analysis. I'm aware that the United States has been shitty for a very long time, while it was still the United States. So if you're watching this and you're feeling like my use of the former United States is because you think you think that I think the United States has lost some moral authority, I guarantee you that's not why I'm using it.
So if the sun is burning nuclear, though, if it's a nuclear burning, the problem is it should be producing what are called neutrinos.
Which it oh was this
That's
during
true.
was this during the time that we didn't know that neutrinos could oscillate between states, and so we were missing about 2/3 of the neutrinos that the sun was emitting because we weren't looking for them?
It's possible, but Kent seems to imply here that there are no neutrinos coming from the sun.
Okay, well, I'm going to say if what he says is there's not enough neutrinos, then I'm going to say that is because he's probably giving this talk during that time window when there was a severe lack of neutrinos that we were detecting from the sun. We were only detecting 1/3 of the number that we thought we should. And it turns out it's because that neutrinos can transfer between the different kinds of neutrinos, and we didn't know that. So this will be interesting.
Neutrinos come from nuclear fusion, and they apparently go right through anything. They go all the way through the Earth.
Usually.
The way they tested to see if the sun is burning by neutrinos.
Burning by fusion, producing neutrinos, but I'll chalk that up to just a misspeak. It's not like I don't misspeak.
The sun is burning by fusion and sending off neutrinos.
Okay.
When these neutrinos go through dry cleaning fluid, I forget the chemical name for it now, but when they go through dry cleaning fluid, they will produce argon gas.
Is that? I've never heard of that, but like I can't say it's not true. I know that the way that modern neutrino detectors work is by having a lot of very, very sensitive photosensors inside a giant volume of water, and then when a very rare neutrino collision event happens with a water molecule that sends off a flash of light that's detected by the photosensitive monitors. I've never heard of cleaner fluid argon production from neutrinos. That doesn't sound like a thing, but I'm also not a physicist. So like, it is true that we can detect neutrinos. I don't know about this technique that he's describing, but I also don't know that it's not true, so I'm not going to call him on it.
Just one of the byproducts. Neutrino goes through and produces argon. So they took this gigantic...
I mean, it seems impossible, right? Because the cleaning fluid can't be made of argon, because argon's a noble gas, right? So it couldn't chemically bind in there. And neutrinos don't like produce new nucleons that could bump something from one element to become argon. So like, it seems impossible, right?
I agree with you. I think he's getting it confused in a couple of major ways.
Yeah. Okay. Because like, this doesn't make a lick of sense to me, but like, I don't know. Okay.
Tank or built a gigantic tank in the bottom of a mine, an abandoned mine they weren't going to use anymore in, I think, Utah or something, real deep in the mountains. They figured, okay, this is a good place to test this out because
Rando from chat for 100 Argentinian pesos says, neutrino sounds like a slur for Swiss people. That's actually pretty good. It does kind of sound like a slur for Swiss people.
Because if we're deep enough in this mine, it'll be isolated or insulated from any surface neutrinos that are being...
All right. Anani says, neutrino cleaning fluid, argon gas, therefore homestake experiment at Wiki. All right. So apparently there is a thing here, which, hey, there you go. Like I said, I didn't know. It turns out I don't know all the things. Sometimes Kent knows of a thing that I've never heard of.
Being produced by, nuclear reactors and stuff like that.
I've also missed some of this. I'm going to go back a sec. But
if we're deep enough in this mine, it'll be isolated or insulated from any surface neutrinos that are being produced by, nuclear reactors and stuff like that.
No, Kent, because remember, they can go through anything. What it's going to be protected from is just outside other kinds of energy that could also cause similar reactions. That's what it's going to be protected from. But sure, go on.
And only from the solar neutrinos. The theory was they thought this should somehow isolate it. After several years of watching, there was an article in 1974, I think it was Scientific American, I've got the article somewhere, saying that they've been watching for several years and there's almost no argon gas being produced in this tank. So we're not sure how the sun is burning, was kind of how it ended. But so far, there is no proof the sun.
I just want to point out that that thing that he just reported on was some 30 years before he gave this talk. And I don't know the exact history of neutrino detection setups and experiments and something, but I feel like in the 3 decades between then and when he gave this talk, and the 6 decades between then and now, that, I don't know, we've got better detectors. So, some more experiments have gone on since then. Just a few. Just a few.
The sun is burning by nuclear fusion. It appears from the chart that the sun is indeed shrinking, and this does put some kind of time limit to the age of the sun, because obviously it used to be bigger.
I mean, if it were gravitational collapse, we know it's not. And apparently Kent just hasn't bothered to check in with neutrino detection since the 70s, which is a little wild to me.
It's typical for Kent, though.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I am not doing Star Trek. My pain levels started the show at like a 3, and we're inching up towards like a 5. So yeah, I'm going to go lay down after this. Sorry about that, everyone. I know that there's a lot of people here who like to watch shows and movies with us afterwards, but I need to lay down. So hopefully Saturday we will watch more. I really do want to apologize. I have fun with it. I know you do too, and it sucks that I can't, but that's how it is. Maybe I'll have another one of these not dark and stormies before I go to bed.
The bigger problem with this, besides just the simple diameter of the sun increasing, eventually it would, touch the Earth.
Yeah, if you extrapolate back linearly, it can. But here's the thing that I always find weird about creationists, right? They will be perfectly willing to extrapolate back into the infinite past processes that we know are not constant, like the change in the diameter of the sun. On the other hand, when we try to extrapolate, and by we, I mean just like science-minded people, extrapolate things back into the past that are based on like just basic laws of physics, like nuclear decay rates, they're like, well, how do you know that hasn't changed? I mean, because it's determined by the laws of physics. It literally can't be otherwise. And like, well, if I extrapolate backwards the actual change in the dipole moment of Earth's magnetic field, then we find that living things would have been ripped apart, just 14,000 years ago. It's like, well, cool, but that doesn't go back smoothly in time. We know that for a fact. We have a geomagnetic record in the rocks. It's like, well, yeah, but if I did, though, and you silly scientists with your extrapolating backwards with the spontaneous decay rate of uranium-235, you can't do that. What if it got hot? Okay, yeah, sure, I guess. What if it got hot, Kent? Well, generic creationists in this situation. But yeah, creationists love to extrapolate backwards or forward things that we know we can't do that with, and then to question it when we try to do that with things that we know we can do it with.
But that would be a long time, at 93 million miles. At 5 feet per hour, that would be the diameter changing, not the radius. So the distance between the sun and the Earth, you'd have to figure the radius as far as the...
Yeah, so it would be 2.5, Kent. We get it. Come on. This is not like 4... Well, okay, what grade do you learn about like the difference between circle, like radius, circumference, diameter, stuff like that?
I went to a private school, so probably a little later than other schools, but I think it was like 7th grade.
Yeah, I think I learned about it like 6th or 7th or something like that. It wasn't 4th, but like, yeah, okay.
Distance there. That would be a problem. 5 feet per hour would be a problem. Go back a few billion years, it would become a serious problem.
I mean, sure, whatever, it doesn't matter, because it's a nonsense thing that's not happening, but like, sure. I just know that whenever I've taken Kent's math and extrapolated it backwards, I could not ever get it to make the same predictions that he did, even with his like lunar recension math. I could not figure out a way to get that to work. I actually spent an entire day once in a in a apartment my company had rented outside Vegas. What I decided to do with my off time that night was try to figure out how Kent's lunar recession math worked. I couldn't make it work.
Your calculator and do the work, and you'll find out it wouldn't take too many billion years, and the sun would be touching the Earth. The other problem, though, is if you go backwards in time and add mass to the sun, the sun is burning and losing about 5 million tons every second. That's it's burning up, okay?
Oh, this is one of those Kent is like a flurf who doesn't understand scale. Right? Because, like, yeah, you can do the math, and you'll find out that at like 4.5 billion years ago, the sun was heavier by a minuscule proportion.
As it's burning and losing this mass, the gravity that the sun has to pull on the Earth to keep us in orbit depends upon the sun's mass.
Right.
If the sun were more massive, the gravity would be stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So if you went backwards in time and increased the sun's mass, that would increase the gravity, which would suck Earth in.
A bit, yeah. A few percentage in, yep. Which, okay.
Is he implying it would swallow the Earth?
I think he's just implying that it would be too close and the sun or the Earth would burn up or something. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says 5 feet per hour, a slow night for Quentin Tarantino. Oh, I did not know that's where that was going. That one was going. Good. I like it. I like it when they take me by surprise. You know, I was hoping we could force Bent to wear a tutu, but I don't think it's going to happen. You're safe, Bent.
All right.
Oh, yeah. The weirdo CKA Evans for $2 says, "Go rest now, your local friendly cranky Yiddish parent." I'm going to give people the 2 hours that I normally do. Because I feel like that's what you all deserve. So it's only 50 more minutes. And then I'm going to get up and I'm going to probably do a bunch of like dad groans while I do it. And then I'm going to hobble off to I'm going to hobble off to the bathroom so I can like, brush my teeth and all that. And then I'm going to go lay down. And I'm probably going to actually be up for a few more hours, but I'll at least be taking the pressure off. So
it really is a stretch to say that the sun has been burning for billions of years, and the Earth has all this time been at just the right distance.
Borg Emporia says that he could wear a tutu anyway just to make us happy. That's up to him.
Let me think about it.
Okay.
And then I'll forget about it.
Yeah.
For life to evolve. That's one of many stretches they have to make in their imagination. Say that the sun has been burning for billions of years, and the Earth has all this time been at just the right distance for life to evolve. That's one of many stretches they have to make in their imagination. Okay.
Okay, but there's not just one right distance, right? There's this whole thing called the Goldilocks zone, which is the distance between, like, where Earth would be too close for liquid water to form and because it would all boil off, and too far because it would all freeze, right? But Earth's close to the inner side of that, but not by like a few percentage points, which is how much the mass would change of the sun, right? So like, it's fine. It's not a problem. You'll notice that Kent doesn't present his math on this. You know why?
Because it's not going to help him at all.
Right. It doesn't work. Inquisitive Infidel for $2 says, in linear versus cubic, very messy estimate. That is one thing. Actually, it was recently brought to my attention that in a quote unquote paper, some young Earth creationists took a graph that was in natural log as the scale. And then without changing the shape of the graph or anything, they were just like, what if we just do log 10 instead? Completely changing all the numbers. And they're like, yeah, that works better. Like, yeah, because you changed the numbers. Those aren't the numbers you got. And they was like, meh, it's fine. We'll just go with it. You can just change the scale on the graph without changing the shape of the graph at all.
It's no big deal.
Yeah, just keep the slope the same. Who cares? It's like anyone who is paying attention should care. Rando from chat for 100 Argentinian pesos says he is sacrificing his health for us. Only the Mahdi would be so generous. Lisan al-Ghaib. Lisan al-Ghaib. I am not the Mahdi. Although that actually was an occasion for me to then go on and explain the difference between the Mahdi and the second coming of Jesus in Islamic theology, because they're not the same thing. The Mahdi and Jesus are not the same figure. And so that was a weird conversation where I was trying to explain like Shiism and like the various imams and occultation and stuff like that. And like I'm getting way like deep into the weeds of a minority Islamic position just to try to explain like fringe eschatology in Islam to Vishanti, and neither of us are Muslim. So like it was a weird day.
Next, what about carbon dating?
That doesn't seem connected all that much, but okay. Also, I kind of like the pink radial gradient that he's got going here. You know what? It's a bold choice, Kent, for you who takes I'm sure, just so much pride in your heterosexuality. Well, come on, we both know that Kent isn't actually heterosexual. I have very, very, very good reasons to think that Kent is in fact not heterosexual. But for someone who pretends to be very proud of his heterosexuality, it's a bold choice, and I appreciate it, Kent. Olivia Williams for $2.79 Beaverbuck says, only the Mahdi would deny being the Mahdi. Thanks, Lorgar Aurelian. Next thing you know, we're going to get the dapper version of the Lectitio Divinitatis written. And that's a deep dive into 40k lore.
Does carbon dating work? Okay, first.
I mean, broadly, yes. There are exceptions, but broadly the answer is yes.
Let me explain how carbon dating works, and then I'll explain the problems with it. The Earth is surrounded by an atmosphere.
Take a drink. I need more alcohol. Kent is right. The Earth is surrounded by an atmosphere. I just increased the speed on this somehow. That was weird. Okay.
And people argue about the number, but it's about 100 miles thick. Well, 100 miles.
I mean, there's no one number, but like that's a fine estimate for like, well, where's the cutoff for space? Like, whatever, sure. 100 miles. Great.
On this 8,000 mile scale, 1,000 miles would be 1/8 of this, or about this far. So 100 miles would be about that far, not much, okay? It's a very thin layer of air around the Earth, but 100 miles is a lot. Meteors come in and get burned up before they hit the surface. The vast majority of them burn up in the atmosphere, and you see what we call a shooting star.
Hey, he's right about that too. I'll take a drink. Well done, Kent. Kent's doing okay. Luna's bored now for $5 says, without carbon-14, I wouldn't date at all. I have numerous videos where the thumbnail and title are in fact jokes about dating carbon-14. One of them is like, I've got a picture of like two people on a date, but I have the head of one of them swapped out for my head, and the head of the other one is swapped out for a diagram of carbon-14. It's like carbon-14 dating. Yeah. Single carbon-14 atoms in your neighborhood looking for companionships. Let's see. Inquisitive Infidel for $2 says, it's a legend. His name is a graving word? Stoning word? I am not sure what you're going for because it looks like a tombstone. A tombing word? A tombstone word? I am bad at these. Bent, are you good at the Rebus principle?
No.
Could you define the Rebus principle?
No.
Okay.
Could you?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, it's not a shooting star, but who cares? That's another story. Anyway, Earth's atmosphere, about the highest part we can breathe is maybe 4 or 5 miles. 5 miles is a stretch. You go up 5 miles, you're on top of Mount Everest. Really tough to breathe up there. The air is so thin.
Okay.
100 miles, it's real thin by the time you get out there. So, solar radiation is striking the atmosphere continually. Earth's atmosphere is mostly nitrogen, 78%, which is an inert gas, won't burn, won't support combustion, and 21% oxygen, 0.06% carbon dioxide. Now, some books, if you look this up in the textbooks, some will say it's 0.03%, and some will say the oxygen is 20.9. There are various numbers here, but this is a reasonable average, okay?
I don't remember all the numbers off the top of my head. I don't really care. I really wish he would just get to the point of like, hey, sometimes solar radiation comes in, hits some nitrogen, it turns into carbon-14, and there you go. But no, we have to beat around the bush about like, how tall is the atmosphere? How high could you breathe? That's one of the things that bugs me about Kent, is Kent has never heard the famous phrase from William Shakespeare that says that brevity is the soul of wit.
0.0000765% is radioactive carbon-14.
Again, I don't know if that number's accurate. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just going to go with it.
Which mixes with normal carbon dioxide. See, carbon dioxide is made from carbon and oxygen. 2 oxygen molecules and 1 carbon. They get together and make CO2. Carbon dioxide doesn't seem to care if it's got the radioactive carbon molecule or the regular carbon molecule.
Yeah, because chemical interactions happen in the electron orbitals, and electron orbitals are unaffected by the neutron number of the nucleus. And the proton number, did I say neutron number or did I say, yeah, they're unaffected by the neutron number, right? Because it's the proton number that determines what the element is, as well as how many electrons are going to be attracted to what will then be a neutral atom of an element. So, yeah. Now, there are certain processes that are mass dependent that can favor one or a different element. And that is a thing that is true in some very extreme cases. But for the most part, different isotopes, which is to say different versions of a nucleus with different numbers of neutrons, are chemically identical to each other. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, Kent is the problem pencil sharpeners were invented to solve. Sorry, is the problem pencil sharpeners were invented to solve. There we go. And then for 100 Argentinian pesos, Rando from chat says, fun fact, the only way the Bolivian soccer team is able to win matches is by building their field so high up their rivals struggle to breathe. Is that actually true? That's actually kind of hilarious if it's true.
That's pretty good strategy. I like that.
Yeah, I really like that too. I hope that's true. It's like, haha, our stadium is 2 miles in elevation. Good luck, Lowlander.
Normally carbon is number 12. Carbon 14 has been produced by sunlight striking the atmosphere.
Did you just see what happened?
No.
Normally carbon is number 12. That indicates that that's like the atomic number, but no. He's thinking of the atomic mass. He got those mixed up. At least it sounds like he did.
Sphere, changing nitrogen into carbon 14. It doesn't care, the molecule doesn't seem to care if it's radioactive.
Dia Wing for $5 says 1611 English as she is spoke. I don't have a 1611 copy, but I do have a much later copy, and that is the 30th super chat, which means what we are going to do is we're going to have a quick reading from English as she is spoke. Then I'm going to announce what's coming up on the channel, and then we're going to get out of here, and I'm going to go lay down. Let's see. All right. We are going to get 2 dialogues here. The first one is... Oh, wait. First, let me update the number here. Get that. Boom, there it is. To inform oneself of a person. How is that gentleman who you did speak by and by? Is a German. Though he is German, he speaks so much well Italian, French, Spanish, and English, none of those are capitalized, that among the Italians, they believe him Italian. He speak the French as the Frenches himselves. The Spanish men belie him Spanishing and Englishmen. It is difficult to enjoy so well several languages. There's no U in there. It's just languages. For to ride a horse. Here is a horse who have a bad looks. Give me another, I will not that. He not shall know to march. Here is Percy. He is foundered. Don't you are ashamed to give me a jade as like? He is unshoed. Not unshod, unshoed. He is with nails up. I want to lead to the farrier. Your pistols are its loads? No, I forgot to buy gunpowder and balls. Let us prick. Go us more fast, never I was seen a so much bad beast. She will not nor to bring forward, neither put back. Strike him the bridle. Strike him the bridle. Hold him reins, charters. Oh, we got Shart in here. Shart showed up, everybody. Let's see. Peak strong gly. That's 2 words. Strong gly. Peak strong gly him to marsh him. I have pricked him enough, but I can't to make march him. Go down, I shall make march. Take care that he not give you a foot kicks. Then kicks for that. Okay. Then he kicks for that I look. Sook here if I knew to tame Hicks. And then Lieutenant Math Navigator for $2 says, finally, some coherent thoughts, right? All right, I'm actually going to read the next one because it's super short, and I want to be able to turn the page here, so that way I'm not confused next time. All right, so this next one is super short, and it is, with a watchmaker. I bring you a watch that wants to be ordered. I have the misfortune to leave fall down the instant where I did mounted it must to put again a glass. I want not a pendulum. I have them here some very good. Don't you live me her proof against? No, against. It's not against, it's against. Don't you live me her proof against. I shall not accept that for this condition. There you go, guys. That is some English as she is spoke. Some of the best formatted and most grammatical English that anyone this side of the equator has ever heard. So I want to say thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. Ben, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
I do not know.
All right. So on Thursday, I'm going to be releasing a mirror of my debate with Craig McNeil over on Debate Hub. That is FTFE. He and I had a little debate. It was a friendly debate. I think it's a debate topic about which reasonable, good faith people can disagree. And he and I disagree on this particular topic. So I think it's about an hour and a half. And Chesh was the moderator. And yeah, so if you watch that and you like it, I would also encourage you to go over to Debate Hub, her channel for debates, and subscribe over there. We need a good, we need a good debate channel. All right, so then that is Thursday. That'll be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Then on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, we will be doing Dapper Reacts. Let's see, Kip will not be able to be with us, and we are starting. Actually, I think we're going to start and finish a new video because I found a short video about the forbidden Ethiopian Bible. You're not allowed to read it, or the Christians will come and get you. Except, I guess, the Ethiopian Christians who have the Ethiopian Bible. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, as I think you can already see by just calling it the forbidden Ethiopian Bible when it's just a thing that's just available in the church in Ethiopia. Yeah. Aiden Polemoeo, who's been a member for 20 months and is at the annual level, says, thanks for all you do, Heart. I was trying to shill a thing, a little shameless, but YouTube wouldn't let it go through. Boo. Yeah, if you were trying to put a link in, YouTube will block that unless you have a shield. Sorry about that. Okay, but then on Sunday, on the Easter, if you are an Eastern Christian, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, the Triumvirate is back. ICR has 5 new evidences for creation, if you will. And so myself, Dr. Dan, and Erica are going to be live here on this channel at that time to take a look at those 5 new evidences. Spoiler, one of them is so dumb, I just cut it out entirely because it's just a non sequitur. That's it. That's all of it. It's just like, okay, cool, doesn't matter. So there you go. And then on Tuesday should be Tisdall Tuesday with Chesh, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern is the time for that. So I hope everyone has had a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope to see all of you on Thursday for the mirror of my debate with Craig. Yeah. The last thing I'll say is that ICE must be abolished.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above.
Siloof, Ben Hovind, Tapioca Weasel, Mikau Dominiak, Sammy LaFleur, Edwin M., Kenneth Swenson, John Ackerman, Sphincter of Doom, Regios, Landon Knoll, Ian Chen, Eleron Teller, Phil Rivara, David Hercules, Joshua Geese, Dan Sheedy, Pegajace, The Plastic Mouse, Gordon Loves Science, Amber Athelian, Prixie Purple, Agricola Sequa, and Me, Myself, and I. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 15% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.